Hey guys, this is Omer from MMOs.com. I'm doing a quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending October 30th, 2017. This is episode number 119 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week comes from Activision, and it's the PC launch of Destiny 2. The game's console player base has steadily been declining from 3.6 million daily active users down to about 1.9 million or so today, so the PC launch should definitely get those numbers back up. It's the first game in the franchise to launch on PC, so that's pretty nice, but it's probably a bit too early to call it a franchise as there's only 2 games. Personally, I'm not too excited for Destiny 2 anymore after reading about how casual the game is and how much Bungie toned down the difficulty. There aren't even any difficulty options anymore either, just one base difficulty that happens to be apparently super easy. But then again, the game is still new, and I'm sure Bungie will be adding more difficult content in the near future, so I may get around to checking it out eventually. Still, it's definitely one of the biggest MMO launches of the year. Even though Bungie/Activision refused to call it an MMO, it totally is. Next up, Breakaway, the first game from Amazon Game Studios, is basically cancelled. Kotaku reported this week that according to sources at Amazon, the oddball team arena brawler Breakaway was officially put on indefinite hold. While the game isn't officially cancelled, it basically is, and I doubt we'll be seeing a lot more of it in the near future. While the game itself is kind of unique, as it wasn't just on the Battle Right style brawler, it still had its own share of issues. In fact, I played the game's alpha, and I played a few more times afterwards, and something about it felt kind of off. And despite Amazon's best efforts, the game just couldn't attract the audience they wanted, so it is rest in pepperoni for now. There doesn't seem to be any layoffs at Amazon Game Studios either, so I'm sure those developers that were working on Breakaway are now working on other projects. Personally, I'm a bit more excited about the MMO that Amazon is working on called New World, but too bad we haven't heard anything about New World since it was first announced. Perhaps with Breakaway out of the spotlight, maybe we'll hear something about New World soon. Up next, we have another game closure announcement. This time, it's the Amazing Eternals from Digital Extremes. The game is barely a few months into beta testing and is already scheduled for permanent shutdown on November 2nd, 2017. I did do a first look on this one, and honestly, while the theme was pretty cool, the gameplay felt kind of janky and the movement and animation just didn't feel fluid and on par with what you'd expect from Digital Extremes, who made Warframe, which is remarkably fluid. Still, this move should allow Digital Extremes to focus on the one thing that players want most anyway, and that's more content for Warframe. I mean, Warframe is doing phenomenal, so no reason to divert resources away from that, so hopefully after this move, at least Warframe will get some more love. Well, now that we got the game closure news out of the way, Lawtale, a 2D side-scrolling MMORPG now published by Papaya Play, just launched a pretty big update this last week that actually combined 2 updates into one. The Agni update adds a brand new class to the game, and the Aki City update adds a bunch of new maps, dungeons, quests, and other goodies. It's a pretty big update to the game, and they're dubbing it the game's biggest update of 2017. And honestly, it's actually one of the only updates of 2017 for Lawtale. But still, the game actually isn't that bad. I personally prefer MapleStory a bit more, but Lawtale isn't bad either. And keep in mind though, the game is now on Papaya Play and not on OG Planet. Anyone had characters on OG Planet, they are wipe or reload. You have to make a new character on Papaya if you do want to play. Moving right along, WildStar is running another free level 50 character event. Anyone who logs into WildStar between November 1st and November 5th will get a free level 50 character along with some starting gear. If you never played WildStar, it's well worth trying in my opinion. The boss fights and dungeons are actually challenging right from the get-go, and that feels great. And while not everyone would like the cartoony art style, I actually think it works really well for WildStar. Plus, the gameplay is super smooth. And while we've been speculating about WildStar's demise for the last year and a half or so, the game is still going and still getting constant stream of updates. If you end up really liking the game though, there's nothing stopping you from making multiple accounts and getting multiple level 50 characters entirely for free. Next, EVE Online launched the Lifeblood expansion this last week. We talked about this one in previous recaps, but the expansion introduces moon mining, new high-level challenges, brand new capital class vessels, and rebalanced frigates, destroyers, and cruisers, and much more. The best part of any EVE expansion is that they're all free. EVE Online is one of the only subscription MMORPGs that offers its players regular expansions entirely for free, and it's awesome. Despite the game's age, launched back in 2003, it's still quite popular even today, and they also have a free-to-play version, so if you never played EVE Online, maybe now is a great time to check it out. A heads up though, there is a bit of a steep learning curve, but it's definitely a unique experience. And moving right along, Darkfall Rise of Agon is free to play between October 27th and November 7th. If you never heard of Darkfall, it's a sandbox MMO with no instances and a single large seamless world. It also has skill-based combat as well as hardcore PvP options. Plus, there's no leveling, a skill-based system instead. And keep in mind though, this is a hardcore full loot MMORPG, so death does come with hefty losses. Still, with the countless generic MMOs out there, fans of hardcore MMORPG should give this one a try. It's an oldie, but at least it's unique. It is a subscription-based MMORPG though, so if you do decide to stick around, prepare to pay up to keep playing. Next up, perhaps the most bizarre news/drama of the week. Ballsky Studios' Cliff Bleszinski made some interesting statements about the game news media's treatment of Lawbreakers. Despite media outlets writing about the huge decline in player base, Cliff Bleszinski clearly wasn't happy about that and said that Lawbreakers is a marathon, not a sprint, and that the press can, quote, fuck off. Obviously, I can see why he's upset, but I don't think it's unfair to call Lawbreakers a dead game or a declining game. I mean, the game's player base numbers are basically 10 players in the morning, 60 players at peak times. That's awful. I mean, Nexon announced the closure of Ghost in the Shell Online First Assault, and that game still gets about 100 players online at any given time, which is about twice the player base of Lawbreakers. So it's not looking good for Lawbreakers, but I can still see why he's upset. But I don't think he should lash out against the media. Instead, just work on the game. Or at least make it go free to play. I just can't see people paying money to play Lawbreakers, but that's just me. And speaking of buy and play shooters, Metro Conflict is relaunching. Yes, the Metro Conflict that OG Planet published last year is coming back as Metro Conflict Origin, and is being published by its own developer, Red Duck. In fact, it's already out in closed beta, but what makes this news a bit bizarre is that the game isn't launching as a free-to-play game. Instead, it's launching with a price tag of $19.99, which makes no sense because it used to be free-to-play back when OG Planet published it, and even back then it was a flop. After all, Metro Conflict was decent, but it's just another Korean lobby-based shooter, so why should people pay for it? It makes no kind of sense when they can play Black Squad or Combat Arms entirely for free, or the other countless Korean lobby-based shooters. Still, if you like Metro Conflict, it's good news for you, but I don't think I'm going to pay for it, and I think it's crazy that they're trying to ask money for this game. It used to be free-to-play, nobody played it, and no one's going to play it when it costs money, but we'll see. Maybe they revamped it a lot. Next up, Magic the Gathering Arena begins its stress testing on November 3rd, with closed beta beginning on November 30th. Wizards of the Coast is making yet another push into the digital CCG arena, with goals of chasing those sweet, sweet Hearthstone profits. The game just isn't out yet, but it's basically just making Magic the Gathering online. They've already had several Magic the Gathering games online, like Magic Duels and Magic the Gathering Online, but for some reason they never really took off, likely due to the poor UI and just hard to get into. Personally, Magic the Gathering is my favorite card game, and I've been playing it offline forever, but it's a really hard game to get working online because of the complex mechanics. It's a much more complex game than Hearthstone, and also it's a lot of fun. I am hoping this one succeeds. Unfortunately, both the upcoming alpha test and the closed beta test are NDA restricted, so don't expect to see videos of it anytime soon. But still, CBT is already coming out, so at least they're making progress on the game. Back to the MMORPG front for a moment. Neverwinter just launched its Swords of the Schult update on the PC, with the Xbox One and PS4 versions of the update launching later this year. Swords of Schult introduces new endgame dynamic skirmish called the Merchant Prince's Folly, as well as some PvP adjustments, some much needed PvP adjustments rather. Other cosmetic and quality of life changes like UI improvements and better sorting are also included in the update. It's also worth mentioning that there's a lot of blowback from players against Neverwinter right now. Players are upset that Cryptic isn't doing enough to fix issues with the game. The video talking about the Swords of Schult has a crazy amount of dislikes, with players venting their frustration with the game. Still, issues aside, the core gameplay in Neverwinter is pretty fun, and the storytelling is fairly solid as well. Hopefully they do a better job of listening to their players going forward though. Up next, a small bit of news for War Thunder, the vehicle combat MMO. The game is launching on Xbox One. No idea when though, but it'll be coming out soon. They said they're working on it, and the game will be cross-platform with its PC counterpart. After the Xbox One version comes out, the game will be available on PC, Linux, Mac, PS4, and Xbox One. One of the few truly cross-platform games out there. Next up, a bit of an oddball. 3D anime MMORPG Tartaros Online is launching its Tartaros Rebirth through Game & Game today. This was an oddball because it's been teased as coming soon forever, back through Games Campus, but never launched through there, and now it's launching years later through Game & Game. This game originally launched back in South Korea back in 2009, so it's definitely a bit of an oldie, but it's the first time the game will be available in English, so I'll check it out with a first look, but it definitely looks a bit dated. And perhaps a bit dated sounds a bit generous, but we'll see. Next and last bit of news is a bit bizarre. It's from the Chinese government condemning Playerunkowns Battlegrounds and other battle royale games. In fact, the Chinese government made the statement that the games could negatively impact the physical and mental health of teenagers, and that developers should not be making battle royale games. Which is interesting because Tencent has been trying to publish PUBG in China, so it's making their life very difficult. Chinese players are already playing on the global service, but there's no Chinese server just yet. So this could throw a big wrench into the whole battle royale scene in China. There's over 30 battle royale games in development right now, so if the Chinese government ends up banning the genre, it could create problems for these companies. Still, it is pretty crazy how much censorship there is in China even today. News has been pretty light this week, not too much going on, but I will see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later, guys.